Sometimes you just want a relaxing pour, so these are 5 great bourbons that are easy to sip on. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So not too long ago, I released a video about 5 deliciously complex bourbons. And it's often amazing to have, those complex pours that have lots of different flavor directions that add a lot of value to your collection. But it had me thinking, the flip side of that coin is the easy sipping bourbon. Something that's just straightforward, simple, not going to necessarily make you think too much, but is still really enjoyable to sip on. So figured I would cover both ends of the spectrum, and today let's talk about those 5 great easy to sip on bourbons that I picked out of my collection that I would highly recommend to you all. So without further ado, let's dive into the list. Number 1 on my list represents a broader category that just makes so many bourbons easier to sip on, and that is Old Forester 1910. So you can see this is empty, which means it's quite easy to sip on. But what's so great about this is that it is essentially a double oaked product. We've got something that has gone into another barrel and experienced even more aging and drawn out even more of those wood sugars. So whether it's 1910, which is one of my personal favorites and I would highly recommend, because you're going to get brown sugar, cherry, very dessert-like in lots of ways, but not super complex. Good sort of toasted sugars all throughout this. So whether it's this bottle or a Woodford double oaked or, a toasted, Elijah Craig toasted could kind of fit in this category as well. Something easy to sip on because it's sweet, not super complex, but presents those sweeter end of the spectrum very, very powerfully, and almost so much so that you don't have to think too much to draw them out. They're just right there in your face. So definitely recommend Old Forester 1910. All right, my next bottle on the list is one that's sweet and pretty much quintessential bourbon, and that is Michter's US1 Bourbon. So what helps here too is that it's lower proof. I believe this one is, 91.4 proof. So not gonna really be aggressive in any way, very easy to sip on. I always get good sort of light brown sugar on this one, cherry, and a touch of spice, but certainly nothing overwhelming. For me, this is one that's grown on me over time as a very solid low proof bourbon option. I had kind of dismissed Michter's core lineup for a while just because they are lower proof and they're a little bit more in that like $45 to $50 range, but I do think this Michter's US1 Bourbon is very solid all around and just very easy to sip on. You could pour this, relax, watch a football game, do whatever else you're doing, and it would still please you and make you feel like you're sipping on something very solid. All right, so the next bottle on my list is one that if you've tasted it, you're definitely not going to be surprised it made the list, and that is Eagle Rare. So if you can get your hands on a bottle of Eagle Rare these days, which is more challenging than ever, it's a very, very easy to sip on bourbon. Even though it's 10 years old, it's got this beautiful oak to it, kind of a cherry grape experience going on at the core of this thing as well. Maybe the slightest bit of spice, but also vanilla, kind of balancing it out. So a sweet, older profile. If you go out to a bar, or if I bring people out to a bar and they have Eagle Rare for anywhere in the $10 to $15 range, that's one of the ones I recommend for them to try and just experience that easy sipping experience. That's very sweet and well matured. So this one definitely brings the age, but keeps it simple and is just enjoyable no matter what the occasion is. All right, so the next bottle on the list is one that is kind of a classic introductory bourbon for a lot of people and represents a broader category as well, and that is Angel's Envy. So Angel's Envy is a port wine finished bourbon, so it definitely brings you these red fruits. The brown sugar is very nice, but what I would say about it in terms of its finish, often finish is a thing that adds complexity and depth to a bourbon. For Angel's Envy, I think the finish just adds straightforward sweetness in a lot of ways. So when you get further along in your bourbon journey, it's maybe easy to dismiss Angel's Envy, but when you think about those easy to sip on options, this belongs on a list of those. It fits right in that category. And again, it's a great one to introduce people to bourbon with because it is so sweet and those wine sweetness characteristics shine through. And the finish isn't going all over the place. It's just mostly presenting that red fruit and brown sugar sweetness. So definitely an easy to sip on one. Okay, so last but not least is probably the most special bottle on this list. I've actually got it poured up here just to taste it, sip on it, because I think since I got it, which was relatively recently, I've been really enjoying sipping on it and finding myself turning toward it when I want something very easy to sip on, but still full of flavor. Cheers. Yeah, that's good. And that is Remus Repeal number 8. So this Remus Repeal number 8 is pretty new to the market. It is a blend of 2 10-year-old bourbons and a 17-year-old bourbon. Lots of high rye in this mash bill, which you would think adds a ton of spice, makes this thing more complex. And in a sense, it has depth to it, it has layers, but I find it so easy to sip on because the profile here is nice oak, very like fig, plum, rich fruits, and then this just like vanilla custard kind of experience that goes along with it. Maybe a touch of like a nuttiness, but it's not the most complex bourbon in the world, and how I would categorize this is pretty easy to sip on. I have the Remus Repeal number 7 as well, and I'd put that in the same category. So whether or not we're addressing this premium bottle and if it's worth the price, I think that's another conversation. Definitely check out my review of the bottle if you want a fuller breakdown. But for me, this is one that I would classify as very easy to sip on, but kind of like Eagle Rare, you're never going to be disappointed with the flavors it presents because it's packed full of flavor. All right, everybody, I think that's going to do it. That's my list of these 5 easy to sip on bourbons to kind of balance out the other video with complex bourbons. These all just present straightforward, very enjoyable profiles to me. Would love to know in the comments below what you think of the list. Did I miss anything? And what would go on your own personal list? What are the easy sipping bottles that you're constantly reaching for? While you're at it, please hit the like button on this video. That's what gets it out to the most people. And then if you haven't already subscribed to the Bourbon Hutch, please consider doing that as well and joining us for the rest of 2024, hoping to produce a lot of great content at the end of the year, which is always a big time for bourbon, and then well into 2025 and beyond as well. So if you haven't already subscribed, let's get that going, all right? Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey. Hopefully you're drinking some enjoyable, easy to sip bottles, and cheers.